On February 1st, 2008, Pau Gasol was traded to the Los Angeles Lakers in exchange for Kwame Brown, Javaris Crittenton, Marc Gasol, Aaron McKie, and 2 first-round draft picks. Before the trade, the Lakers were in playoff contention at 28-16, but they did not necessarily look like a team capable of winning a championship. However, the Gasol trade quickly changed that as LA went 29-9 after the deal and finished the season first in the West at 57-25. The Lakers would go on to lose to the Boston Celtics in the finals that same year, but they would avenge that loss by winning back-to-back championships in 2009 and 2010. It's safe to say that the addition of Gasol worked out quite well for the Lakers. However, many people around the league felt that it worked out almost too well. Taking another look at the trade, we can see that the Grizzlies didn't exactly get a haul for their franchise player. Now, this isn't a trade that simply looks bad in retrospect. It was widely considered to be a terrible move by Memphis in the aftermath of the deal. At the time, it had already been established that Kwame Brown was a massive draft bust, and Javaris Crittenton was a 20-year-old rookie that hadn't shown much in his first season. Continuing on, Marc Gasol was the 48th pick in the 2007 draft, so the expectations weren't too high for him either. Aaron McKie was simply a salary filler, and the 2 draft picks that they got weren't expected to be great either, since the Lakers were now seen as a contender with Kobe and Pau Gasol. While Marc Gasol did end up becoming a 3-time All-Star, not even Memphis believed that he would turn out to be that good, as he was a late second-round pick. Memphis didn't commit to Marc early on, as in the 2009 NBA draft, they selected Hasheem Thabeet second overall to be their center of the future. The point being that Memphis shouldn't be praised for the fact that Marc became a great player, because not even they were expecting that when they brought him in. With that in mind, we can see why so many people were shocked and upset after this trade became official. While Pau Gasol had demanded a trade out of Memphis, the belief around the league was that there had to have been better trade packages than what the Lakers offered up. Greg Popovich even went as far as to say that what they did in Memphis is beyond comprehension. There should be a trade committee that can scratch all trades that make no sense. I just wish I had been on a trade committee that oversees NBA trades. I would have voted no to the LA trade. Because of this, a rumor that the Grizzlies sent Pau Gasol to the Lakers as a favor began to spread like wildfire. At the root of this conspiracy was NBA legend Jerry West. Many basketball fans know Jerry West for 2 things: being the silhouette of the NBA logo and for being one of the greatest players to wear the purple and gold in LA. But what a lot of people don't know was that West was also a very successful general manager with the Los Angeles Lakers from 1982 to 2000 and with the Memphis Grizzlies from 2002 to 2007. Despite not being the GM of the team when the Pau Gasol trade went down, there were suspicions that West had a massive influence on this move. In order to understand why people were so suspicious of West, we need to go back to 1986 when Jerry West was the general manager of the Los Angeles Lakers. At the time, Mitch Kupchak had just finished his playing days in the NBA and had landed a job as the assistant general manager for the Los Angeles Lakers. As GM of the Lakers, West served as a mentor to Kupchak, and they formed a strong relationship. Kupchak would go on to succeed West as the general manager of the Lakers, officially gaining all of the traditional powers of a GM in the year 2000. LA would go on to win 3 straight championships from 2000 to 2002, but things took a turn for the worst in the 2004 offseason. In 2004, the Shaq and Kobe feud had become too much to handle, so the Lakers traded Shaq to the Miami Heat. This deal caused the Lakers to miss the playoffs in the 2004-05 season, followed by consecutive first-round exits in 2006 and 2007. It got so bad that Kobe Bryant requested a trade after the 2007 season. Because of the poor results and the fact that his superstar wanted out, Mitch Kupchak received heavy criticism, and lots of people questioned whether or not he was suited for his role as GM of the team. So with his old friend Mitch Kupchak struggling and his old team not being in championship contention, it is believed that West used his connections in Memphis to get Pau Gasol sent over to the Lakers. Roughly a week after the details of the trade had been announced, Jerry West had a few interesting quotes to say the least. When asked about the Pau Gasol deal, West said, "I think people are very excited about this trade, and obviously I'm very happy for Mitch. I've seen some of the criticism he's gotten here, and it's not justified." When talking specifically about what the addition of Pau Gasol meant for the Lakers, West said, and I quote, "He's a terrific kid, a very skilled offensive player. He's got size and some versatility. He's a very good player. It's a terrific deal for the Lakers. This is a steal for the present. Considering everything that I've talked about, you could definitely understand why someone would think that something fishy went on behind the scenes. On the other hand, skeptics of this conspiracy would argue that it's simply inconceivable. After all, Memphis is a professional basketball team as well, and it might seem ridiculous to think that they would sacrifice the future of their organization just to appease their former GM in Jerry West. But what if West was able to convince Memphis that this would actually be a good trade for them in the long term? After all, Jerry West did say that the trade was a steal for the Lakers, but only for the present. In order to understand why West might have felt that this trade could have been good in the long run for Memphis, we have to go back in time to 2003. In 2003, the Grizzlies just missed out on LeBron James and the number 1 overall pick. 4 years later, in the 2006-07 season, the Grizzlies finished with the worst record in the NBA. However, they ended up with the 4th overall pick. Once the Pau Gasol trade went down, Grizzlies owner Michael Heisley became very frustrated with the fact that his team had been able to get a franchise-altering talent. When discussing the current state of the Grizzlies at the time, Heisley was very open and honest, saying, "This sure is a fantastic system we have, isn't it? Where we've never gotten the number 1 pick. Our ticket sales just stopped last year when we didn't get one of the top picks. What's the sense in all of this?" Essentially, Heisley wasn't happy with the return that his team got for Pau Gasol because he felt that they didn't bring in any valuable assets, and on top of that, the team did have some misfortune in previous draft lotteries, meaning that he wasn't optimistic that they'd ever luck out and get a number 1 overall pick. Heisley even went as far as to criticize then general manager Chris Wallace, as he publicly stated, "Maybe our people should have shopped Gasol more, and maybe we would have gotten more, done a better deal. Maybe Chris did call every team in the league. I don't think he did, but maybe he should have." As we can clearly see, Heisley wasn't a fan of the Gasol trade that Chris Wallace agreed to. However, what's interesting is that in a 2008 article written by Adrian Wojnarowski, Woj reported that league officials, as well as a close friend of Wallace, believed that there was no way that Wallace ever would have made that trade on his own. We already know that the Grizzlies owner didn't like the deal, so who could have convinced Wallace to go through with this? If you believe in this conspiracy, then you would say that Jerry West was the one that influenced Wallace. We know that West was the GM in Memphis for 5 years, so it's reasonable to expect that the organization had a place in his heart. Because of this, it doesn't seem crazy to suggest that West could have possibly got in contact with Chris Wallace and offered his input into what the Grizzlies should have done with Gasol. Because of his connection with the Lakers organization, as well as Mitch Kupchak, West could have suggested the Lakers as a potential trade destination. Gasol's trade value on the open market was unknown, but there's a good chance that it was relatively low because of the fact that he had previously demanded a trade. Therefore, even though there could have been some slightly better offers on the table for Gasol, it's possible that if Wallace wasn't amazed by any other offers, he could have sent Pau to the Lakers in order to do Jerry West a favor for giving him some advice on what to do with Gasol and the team going forward. On top of that, the rationale behind this trade isn't entirely ridiculous. The plan was just executed poorly. Because Memphis got a weak return for Gasol, it was almost inevitable that the Grizzlies would be a bad team in the coming years, which would allow them to potentially draft a young star. Remember, at this time, the team with the worst record in the NBA would have a 25% chance of landing the number 1 overall pick, so there was a larger incentive to tank back then. In 2008, they had the 5th pick, which they used to select Kevin Love, only to trade him to Minnesota moments later in exchange for OJ Mayo. While Mayo didn't turn out to be the star that he was expected to be, the pick made sense at the time since they were in need of a shooting guard. Even still, a player like Kevin Love would have obviously been a much better pickup for them instead of Mayo. However, their biggest mistake came 1 year later when they picked Hasheem Thabeet 2nd overall. Unfortunately, Memphis felt like they had their backcourt of the future with Mike Conley and OJ Mayo, so they passed up on James Harden, Steph Curry, and DeMar DeRozan in 2009. Same Memphis had held on to Love in 2008 and drafted James Harden in 2009, the Grizzlies could have had a future starting lineup of Conley, Harden, Gay, Love, and Marc Gasol. If Jerry West truly did have some say in the Pau Gasol trade, it would have been because he saw championships in the Lakers' future and an exciting young roster like the one I just alluded to in Memphis. All in all, Memphis did have some nice success with Marc Gasol, Zach Randolph, and Mike Conley, but you have to wonder what they could have been if they had done better with those 2008 and 2009 picks. So in sum, Jerry West could have gotten involved in this trade to help out his old friend Mitch Kupchak, who was the GM of his former team, the Los Angeles Lakers. In addition to that, West may have wanted to help out Memphis after stepping down as GM in 2007, and felt that the Grizzlies' quickest path to success would be to embrace tanking. Therefore, Jerry West did Chris Wallace a favor by giving him advice, and in exchange, Wallace helped out West's old friend and team by sending Pau Gasol to LA. Now, the other explanation could be that Chris Wallace executed this trade all on his own, and it was simply a bad decision on his part. But I think it's always fun to explore the idea of an NBA conspiracy.